Hi, in this video, let us see how you can structure your funnel so that it is easier for you to track the events across the funnel. This includes planning the URL pattern so that it will be easier for you to set up the tracking just once and you don't need to set up the tracking again and again for similar pages. Also, we'll see how you can collect the user information and map them to a cookie so that it is mapped with different events across the funnel, and how you can set up the events and trigger the events like the lead event, the purchase event, the checkout event, and if you have any upsell or downsell pages, you can still set up the upsell event and the downsell events. So let me explain a few scenarios which covers almost all the event setup and the user tracking. Now let us take a simple scenario where you have the common landing page and the card details collection page and then the thank you page. So the landing page is where you give the lead form where you collect the user information like first name, last name, phone number, email, etc. And the second page will be the checkout page where you set up the purchase event by tracking the attributes like the price and currency. And the third page is the thank you page where you trigger the purchase event. And after this you have to plan the URL. So as I already told you, here you have this common path for the landing page till LP or landing page, whatever you name it. So when you have a common path set up like this, even for checkout you have a common till checkout, and for the thank you page you have the common path till TY or thank you. When you set up like this, it is easier for you to set up the tracking once, and when you have a similar pages, the remaining part only changes and you don't need to set up the tracking again and again. So once the event is set up, it will trigger even if the name changes here. So that is why URL planning is important. So the next step is to collect the user information and map them to a cookie so that it is mapped with the events that you track across the funnel. So for this, you need to trigger the create user event using the no-code event tracker. There are two ways to trigger the create user event. The first case is when you have the lead form on a model pop-up or iframe, you can actually send the user information through the query parameter to the next page, in this case the checkout page, and track the user details, that is trigger the create user event and track the user information from the URL query. Even in the case of embedded form, you can do it. After the form submit, when you redirect the users, you send the information that you collected on the first page like the email, first name and last name through the query parameter to the next page, here the checkout page, so that you can trigger the create user in that page. So the other way is when you are not able to send the details in the URL query parameter, you can actually trigger the create user event on the first page itself when the user submits the form. So let me show you how you can set up this create user event in both the scenarios. Let us take the first scenario where you can track the user details from the query parameter. Go to your Customer Labs account and launch the no-code event tracker. You will be redirected to your landing page. Here, when a user enters the information and clicks this button, he'll be redirected to the next page where you have configured to receive the user details in the query parameter. From here, you can actually track using the no-code event tracker by giving the create user event. This is on page view. So when the user lands on this page, the event will be triggered. Add details from the query parameter. First, you have to add the identifier. So identify the user by email. Make sure you give the same string as it is in the URL. Verify and save. Likewise, you can add the other attributes like the first name, and the last name. show the email because the first identify by email is the identifier and here it is a user trait. After this, click on next post action trigger. You don't need to set this up. Go to the next step, choose the path, save it and save action. So this is one way to trigger the create user event. Now let's look at the other possibility. When you are not able to send the user details through the query parameter, you can trigger the create user event when the user submits the lead form on the first page. This is a landing page where the form is submitted. You can trigger the create user event here. Start by recording the action, create user. On click, when the user clicks the button, this is the submit button. So when the user clicks this button, the event will be triggered. So you can add the details, add the identifier first, which is the email, save it, add other user attributes, first name, and the last name. Add the email, which is the user trait here. Next, post action trigger. You don't need to set this up. Choose the current page, save it and save the action. This is another way to trigger the create user event when the user submits the form. After setting up the create user event, you can now set up the lead event. Go to the landing page and open the no-code event tracker. Start by recording the action. Give it as custom and give the name as lead. Make sure you give the name as lead because it is easier for you to sync with the ad platforms. Choose page view. Why page view and not the submit button as the action type is because in case if you have set up the create user event on the submit form, both events get triggered simultaneously. So sometimes in this case, the user details are not mapped to the event. Hence, it is advisable to trigger the lead event on page view and set up the success scenario as the next page, which is in this case is the checkout page, so that when the create user event is triggered, the user details will be mapped to the event in the next page. Now go to the next step. You don't need to give the details since you have already set up the create user event. Go to the next post action trigger. Set up the success path, which is the checkout page. This will trigger the lead event only after the user lands on this page. Save the path. Go to the tracking rule. Give it as current page. Save it and save the action. So this is how you set up the lead event. Now after setting up the lead event, now you can set up the purchase event on the checkout page. Open the no-code event tracker on the checkout page. Start by recording the action. Give it as purchased. You can either give it on click or on page view. When you have a button on this page, it is advisable to give on click. Pick the button. You can add the details. You can track the product price. And the currency. In case you have a dynamic pricing and the currency changes, you can set that as an element on your web page so that you can use the no-code event tracker to pick the element like how we did for the pricing. Go to the next post action trigger. So this is where you trigger the purchase event. In this case, for the first scenario, it is a thank you page. Save the path. Go to the next step. This is the current page. Save it and save the action. This is how you set up the purchase event when you have the thank you page as the next page. Let's look at the next scenario where you have an upsell page and downsell page before you go to the thank you page. So everything remains the same. Setting up the URLs, make sure you give the same name for upsell and downsell pages. And create user events remains the same. The same procedure goes here. Triggering the lead event also remains the same because the success scenario is still the checkout page in this funnel also. Trigger purchase event remains the same with a slight change in the success path where you give the upsell page as the success path. So when the user completes the purchase and moves on to the next page, here in this context is the upsell page, the purchase event is triggered. So let's see how that is set up. Open the no-code event tracker on the checkout page. Start by recording the action. Give it as purchased. You can either give it on click or on page view. When you have a button on this page, it is advisable to give on click. Pick the button. You can add the details. You can track the product price. And the currency. In case you have a dynamic pricing and the currency changes, you can set that as an element on your web page so that you can use the no-code event tracker to pick the element like how we did for the pricing. Go to the next post action trigger. When you have an upsell page after the purchase page, you trigger the purchase event when the user lands on the upsell page. So this is the upsell page. This will be the upsell page. So when the user completes the purchase and lands on this page, the purchase event is triggered. You can save this path. And next, save the path and save action. So this is how you trigger the purchase event when you have an upsell page. So the next event is setting the upsell event. When the user adds a product to the cart and moves on to the next step, which is the thank you page, the upsell event is triggered. Let's see how we can do that. This is the upsell page that we have currently. Open the no-code event tracker. Start by recording the action. Give it as custom, upsell, on click, and choose the trigger button. You can add the same details like the product price, and the currency. When you have dynamic pricing, you add that as an element on your web page so that it is easily trackable using the no-code event tracker. Go to the next page. Here for the upsell event, you set the success path as the thank you page. Save the path. Choose that as current page, save, and save the action. So this is how you set up the upsell event. When a user skips the upsell page and moves to the next page, which is in this scenario, is the downsell page. If you want to trigger the downsell event, you can do that. Let's see how you can do that now. Go to the downsell page and open the no-code event tracker. have to give the success path. So in this case, after the downsell page, it is the thank you page. So the success path will be the thank you page. So the downsell event is triggered when the user enters this page. So this is how you set up the downsell event. When the user clicks the button on the downsell page and moves on to the next page, which is the thank you page, the downsell event is triggered. Let's discuss another scenario where you have crazy upsell. You have upsell page 1, upsell page 2, and after that downsell and thank you page. So everything remains the same except for the upsell page 1 where the success scenario will be different. The URL planning, everything remains the same. Upsell 1, upsell 2, downsell, create user, lead event, purchase event. For the first upsell event, when the user clicks the trigger button and moves on to the next page, here in this case, the next page is the second upsell page. So the success scenario will be set as the second upsell page path. Let's see how you can do that. Go to the first upsell page, open the no-code tracker, give it as custom, first upsell, on click, pick the button, add the details, save it, put the currency, go to the next step, and here the success path will be the next upsell page. As upsell, which is upsell 3. Save the path. Give it as current page and save. So this is how you set up the first upsell event when you have multiple upsell pages. For the second upsell event, when the user clicks on the trigger button and moves to the next page, the second upsell event is triggered. So the next page here is the thank you page. So you set the success scenario as a thank you page for the second upsell event. Let's see how you can do that. Go to the second upsell page and start recording the action. Give it as custom, second upsell. The details, go to the next step, and here for this success path, if you don't have any other upsell pages, you can give it as the thank you page. So in this case, for the scenario that we are discussing, it is the thank you page. Save the path. Save action. So this is how you set up the second upsell event when you have multiple upsell pages. When a user skips the first upsell and moves to the next page here in this scenario is the downsell page. Here we trigger the downsell event. For the downsell event, we set the success scenario as the thank you page path, because after the downsell event, the user doesn't move to the upsell page 2. The user directly moves to the thank you page. So let's see how we can set this up. Go to the downsell page and open the no-code event tracker. go to the next step. Now you have to give the success part. So in this case, after the downsell page, it is the thank you page. So the success path will be the thank you page. So the downsell event is triggered when the user enters this page. So this is how you set up the downsell event. When the user clicks the button on the downsell page and moves on to the next page, which is the thank you page, the downsell event is triggered. I have explained 3 basic scenarios which cover almost all the events tracking, including the create user event. You can follow a similar procedure for any other different types of funnels that you have and track the event similarly. If you have any questions, please let us know. Thank you.